I think that we can now say officially that it is the holiday season. Even if you're someone who isn't into decorating until after Thanksgiving, I think we are all can be on board with it here now. And you're probably feeling a little stressed or maybe a lot stressed. And today's episode, I'm really hoping that we can eliminate a lot or all of that stress. There's still going to be stuff that you need to do. There's just so much, right? There's so much regular life that needs to happen. We still need as homeschool moms to keep everybody alive and keep everything going and keeping the house standing and keeping the dog from running away from home. All of those things. Then we have the extra stuff that's added on because of the Christmas season. Maybe you have a lot of family gatherings. Maybe there are performances. And then we have our family traditions. Those Christmas traditions that are the family unit you want to carry through it. They're really important to you and you want to do them. And there's just a lot of expectations that are placed upon you, and possibly even just expectations that you place upon yourself that others aren't necessarily placing upon you. But putting those on, as a mom, we tend to do that though, right? So here's the thing also. Let's not forget that you homeschool as well. And at the end of the holiday season, even as you go through the holiday season, I know that you don't want to feel guilty. Let's not add any guilt onto you because you're feeling like you are neglecting your homeschool. And so that is what this episode is going to give you here today. I am offering 3 solutions to you today to get your homeschool done during the Christmas season. And then at the end of the Christmas season, as you head into the new year, and even while you go through the Christmas season, you're going to feel really good about how you went through this Christmas season and still were able to check mark off that box for homeschool. And at the end of this Christmas season, you are going to have zero guilt.
Welcome to the Little by Little Homeschool Podcast, where you can get out of survival mode, feel confident in your homeschool decisions, and gain peace in your heart and home. I know that when we plant our feet firmly in this season of life and embrace our homeschooling, motherhood, and homemaking, we will thrive. I truly believe that we can do this from a place of peace and joy, all while growing a ton of contentment. And while we're at it, Mama, let's deepen those relationships with our children and love these years we get to pour into them. If you're ready to create beauty, seek simplicity, and live intentionally, homeschool mama, then close up that lesson book, let the kids go play, and let's have an authentic conversation.
Before we jump into those 3 different really amazing options, I wanted to let you know something. I mean, we all know this time of the year, there's tons of sales. And so I wanted to include a Black Friday sale here for Clarify Your Homeschool just for you. And you might be saying, why would I want to start that right now? You're like, I already started my homeschool. Well, I'm going to say, why not? Why wouldn't you want to start right now? This is something you can start at any time of the year. But I personally think this is a really great time because I use the time that is between Christmas and New Year's to do a lot of reflection and to think back. And especially when it comes to homeschool, this is a great opportunity that I use, and I want you to use it as well during that time, is to shift and to take a look at what have I been doing? What have I been doing? Are there things that I could be doing differently or even better? And that is what Clarify Your Homeschool is going to get you to be able to do without the guesswork, without the wondering, without the questions. We're just going to get you from point A to point B to point C, and you can get started on that right now. You can wait a little bit. I know the holidays, and we're talking about how crazy the time is right now. And that's okay for you to go ahead and purchase the program and then get started sometime after the Christmas season. So if you use coupon code Black Friday 2023, you'll be able to save 30% on Clarify Your Homeschool. Let's kick off 2024 with an amazing homeschool that is created just for your family, your homeschool. This sale is good from today until next Monday, but I'm going to encourage you not to wait because you have a crazy week ahead of you right now. And I know that you have a lot going on, and I don't want you to forget. So you can head over to clarifyyourhomeschool.com, use the coupon code Black Friday 2023, and immediately get 30% off. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my own personal experience when it comes to homeschooling and Christmas. And I haven't been shy about the fact that I really didn't have any homeschool friends, and I didn't have a lot of influence there. There wasn't the internet, there weren't conferences, there weren't many books when I started 13 years ago. There weren't as many opportunities for me to learn from others as you have the amazing privilege to do so. And it is what it is. I mean, I could look back and I can feel bad about such things, but it helps make me who I am. And it also helps me to have stories and to be able to serve you better and say, hey, this is what I did. Maybe you can avoid some of my mistakes, but I also know that we all learn best from trying things and not getting it right. And so I just assumed that I had to continue doing a full homeschool day the exact same way, the same intensity all the way through the Christmas season, through the entire month of December. And, we just hit those books hard every single day. And I'm not going to say that there weren't any tears and there was no stress because that would be a complete lie. I made sure we got every single worksheet done and we did every single problem on the math and just everything that needed to be done that the curriculum said I had to do. Plus, we had a lot of other things going on. We were heavily involved in our church. My kids had performances. We had a lot of traveling to do over the month of December. And so there were a lot of opportunities for extra things for us to do during the Christmas season. Plus, just our regular time of how we wanted to spend together. And we also had our Christmas traditions and our Advent. And I kind of failed and I was stressed. And I don't know if my kids necessarily noticed. They don't seem to be any worse for the wear at this point. But as the years went by, I was like, you know what? Guess what? I am the commander of this homeschool ship. I get to decide what's the intensity and what's that going to be. And I began to make some changes. And that's what I'm going to offer you today is 3 different options. Are you ready to write these down? I hope so. So you're going to write them down, scribble down some notes, but the most important part is afterwards. Let your brain become really creative and think, how would this option look in my family? How would this option look in my family? How would the next option look in my family? And you might know right away that some of the options aren't going to work. You're focused on just this year. So what would it look like? And then go ahead and implement it. This is a really great time to do it. You have maybe hopefully a little bit of time. Maybe you're traveling for Thanksgiving and you can use some of that time in the car to do some research and some planning and to find some different resources that you can pull into your homeschool to use during the Christmas season. Okay, get that pen and paper and let's start now. And I promise I won't keep you long because I know you have a lot to do. So listen to all these 3, then decide what's going to work for you just this year. Just focus on what's going to work for you this year. Okay, option number 1. Are you ready? This one might sound extreme to some of you, and this might sit really well for some of you. But number 1 is to totally ditch all of your current curriculum and resources and jump full into Christmas homeschooling. And you might be like, oh, what's Christmas homeschooling? I've never heard of that. Well, Christmas homeschooling is actually a thing. It's where you replace each of the subjects that you have planned to do, things that you started back in September or October, and then you actually each day replace those with something Christmas instead. So what that would mean is this. Let me give you an example. You have a writing curriculum and you put that on the shelf and you decide not to do that, but your writing doesn't stop. You then instead, during this Christmas season, during the Christmas homeschooling, your writing is focused on Christmas. I know that you can find a lot of different resources online to be able to pull in or for something for like writing, or maybe it's just something you make up on your own. Let's say an example of reading. Instead of doing certain reading that you're going to do, you put it aside and you focus on doing reading from Christmas stories and Christmas books and Christmas poems, that kind of stuff. I'm not saying that you can't finish up your regular books that you are doing, but maybe just kind of try to maybe a little bit finish them up, and then you can just even maybe switch out some of those. Maybe they're books that you can just put aside and switch them out for Christmas-themed books. Let's give another example here. When it comes to your history, maybe you wouldn't necessarily ditch history completely. You would just focus on history that is associated with Christmas, whether that's going back to biblical history of Christmas and studying that, or maybe you want to tie in some of the history of the traditions that we do during the Christmas season. So kids don't just always know, they just take it for granted that we hang up stockings on the fireplace and that we put a Christmas tree in. But maybe you dive into that kind of history and you find out, why do we actually do some of these traditions? So what you're doing is replacing every single subject that you normally would do with something that's focused on Christmas. Did you know that there are even resources out there that can help you make this switch, like, say, for math? It might be math worksheets that have Christmas stuff on it. Maybe instead of your math being a new lesson every day, you're just maybe having them do a couple of math problems or some flashcards or something just to help them review. Maybe there's a Christmas game that goes along with it. There are a lot of different options when it comes to the different subjects, but overall, with this option number one, it is to totally ditch everything you have. And some of you might be like, that is too much. That is too extreme for me. What does that even look like for me in my life? And what you would do is basically just put those things on the shelf, put all the curriculum, put all the resources on the shelf that you've been doing. There's no reason to do science experiments right now. You could actually even just put science on the shelf completely. I know, I just said that. If you can't find something that is a good substitute for Christmas homeschooling when it comes to science, but you could find something that would be a good substitute as well. But just know that if you can't find something that would be a good substitute for Christmas homeschooling, say for a subject like science, then you could just take that science, put on the shelf, and guess what? Don't feel bad or guilty about it at all. And just know there are many of us who are like, okay, there's no science. Okay, there's no geography going on now. But science could be something like you're including science in the kitchen, and that could also be math. And you're learning about how to do different things in the kitchen. So let's say, and example of baking cookies. Let's talk about specific ingredients. You could focus in on baking soda. What would happen, you could say, if we didn't put baking soda in the cookies? Maybe an option would be just to pull out some of the dough before you put the baking soda in. And you then put the baking soda into the rest of the dough and you bake the cookies, the ones with the baking soda or without the baking soda. And your kids get to see the difference and they get to see how important certain ingredients are when it comes to baking. And they can say, you could tell them, like, what's the difference? Take a look at this. Nobody needs to write any papers about it. Nobody needs to do any more research or does not need to be a dissertation on this type of thing. So, option number one is completely ditching everything that you have and putting it on the shelf and replacing it with a full on Christmas homeschooling. And some of you might be thinking, I don't think I can do that. That's not me. That's not good for this year. That's okay. You could say, I told my state that I was going to be doing certain things. So don't worry. Don't worry. You will pick up with the rest of the stuff when you get here after Christmas break and you'll start back in January and you'll pick back up. It's okay. I promise and assure you that your kids will not be quote unquote behind because you put aside that curriculum and those resources. Let's move on to option number two. And that is when you keep your curriculum and your resources, but you could completely change some different parts of your homeschool, which could include, say, something like morning time or your family learning style time, and you would just switch those to Christmas homeschooling. Maybe you don't do morning time. This is a really good time that you could actually start doing that. And I use that term morning time. You can call it whatever you want to call it because morning time is just kind of a common phrase that most people know. But maybe you don't know what morning time is. Well, morning time is when your family gathers together and you do a couple subjects together. And it's just focusing on learning together. And those subjects are typically subjects and resources that often, as homeschool moms, we want to do, but we feel like they aren't as important and we just don't get to them. And that's what we get to do during morning time. And so maybe during Christmas, you actually just read Christmas stories. You might add some poetry. You might do a Christmas hymn study. Those types of things would be included in your morning time. And so you would then maybe pause on what you're doing right now for your morning time or for your family learning subjects, and then you would just replace those with Christmas homeschooling. So how is this different than option number one? Well, option number one is you're completely putting aside everything and you're replacing it 100%. This is not replacing it 100%. You would maybe still keep your curriculum when it came to maybe your math, your reading, language arts, writing, whatever the subjects are that you feel are the core and that you need to continue doing. And this often can work really well when you have kids that are spaced out in age because it can be really hard. Let's give an example. If you say you have a seventh grader and a second grader and you're talking about math, well, it'd be really hard to ditch math and replace it with one type of Christmas homeschooling when it comes to your math because you're going to find that your second grader might still be learning math facts and your seventh grader might be doing pre-algebra. So that also, this option doesn't mean that you can't do it if your kids don't have a big age gap, but I wanted to give that example because it would be something to consider. And so to summarize, option number two is to keep some of your current resources and curriculum without completely changing all of them, but you're just changing up some of what you're doing. Let's go on to option number three. I want to offer you here is that what you would do is you cut out all the extras and you would just focus on your reading and your math and then add in Christmas homeschooling. So it's kind of a combination of, say, number one and number two, where you're taking some of the extra things, but you've been working on geography and you're saying, I can't do geography this month. That's okay. You just say, I can't continue. It's too much. Then put it aside. Maybe there's just some extra subjects. Maybe it's science again. Maybe it's the history. Maybe it's the author study that you've been doing. And you're just saying, I'm going to do something different. Extras are whatever it is for your family. And maybe those extras aren't even necessarily curriculum. Maybe it's the video series that you've been watching and you have to put that aside. Or maybe it's some type of outside activity. Maybe you decide something like, well, we are going to take the month of December off from guitar lessons or piano lessons or from volleyball or basketball, or maybe take the month off from chess club, a book club. Whatever those extras are, it's okay to put them on hold for the month of December and just use that time even. Doesn't mean you have to replace it with anything. You just use that time to be quiet at home and to add some margin and some space into your day so that you're not constantly rushing through the holiday season, and you get to focus on the holiday season for your kids, but also for you. And in this option number 3, your kids are still getting their reading and their math in, and you're feeling not guilty at all about focusing on those. But then you get to add in some fun stuff for Christmas homeschooling. You can use whatever resources you want. Like we've already mentioned, there are so many different resources. And I would say to get onto Google, what I'm going to tell you to do is to put a timer, maybe on your phone, that only gives you about 5 minutes. See what you find, and then that is it. There is no right, perfect curriculum or Christmas homeschooling resource out there that you have to do. And if you don't do that one, you're missing out. There is none. They're all most likely going to be really good if you are looking at it and saying, I think this is going to be good. Now, some of them maybe not so good, but you're going to know right away. Use your gift of discernment. Don't get lost on Google, though, okay? Maybe you have some resources that you already have and you can pull those in. So see what you can find and just kind of put on the shelf some of those subjects that just are okay, and continue working on your math and your reading and cutting out the extras. Some of the things you can add in, I highly talk about well, quite often around Christmas, about Advent. I've spoken about it a lot. I suggest that you include that into your homeschool. There were many years actually that we did multiple Advent studies. One would be something specific that I would do with myself with the kids during our homeschool time, because I wanted to include it, because sometimes I would find so many great resources and I would purchase a couple of them in the same year, and we would do one during the homeschool day, and then we would do one in the evening, whether it was during dinner or in the evening before bed when dad was around. So option number 3 here just allows you to cut out the extras, focus in, and then not have the guilt of saying, oh, they're going to get behind in their reading, because you're focused in on those couple of subjects still. They're not going to get behind in no matter whatever option you choose. Your kids aren't going to get quote unquote behind. But I do want to encourage you overall to add in some fun Christmas stuff, add in some margin, add in some space, add in some reading, add in joy, and add in just time with your family. Bake the cookies, cook a special dinner, make some homemade gifts to give out to neighbors, go Christmas shopping together, go Christmas caroling. Just do those fun things. You could do things like I mentioned earlier, Christmas hymn studies. There's just a lot of fun activities. Maybe you do game schooling one day. Maybe you do more crafts. But overall, those are the 3 options. And I want you to sit down after this and think about, what is going to work for my family? What is going to work for my family just this year, so that you can get to the other side of the Christmas season, all the while enjoying the Christmas season, because that's really important as well. But getting to the side of the Christmas season and saying, you know what? I don't have any guilt about how we walked through the Christmas season with homeschooling, so that you aren't thinking, I didn't do enough. I failed my kids. They're getting behind. And I don't want you to feel like that at all. I want you to think, oh, I did so good September through mid-November, and then we just crashed and burned. No, you're just shifting. You're pivoting. You're making some changes. They're all good changes. What you were doing before was great. What you're going to do now for Christmas homeschooling is also great. And don't worry. You'll back up with those resources afterwards when you get started back in again in January. And I want to say, if some of those resources are not working for you, don't pick them back up. If they were already resources that were causing issues and tears and it was just not going well, put those aside for the rest of the homeschool year and don't pick them back up in January. Now, one last time I want to mention here before we close out this episode is that Clarify Your Homeschool is currently 30% off for the Black Friday sale. All you need is to put in the coupon code Black Friday 2023. This will end on Monday. But like I mentioned earlier, don't procrastinate. Don't wait. because I can almost guarantee that you're probably like me. You're going to forget because we're going into this busy week and there's a lot to do. And I don't want you to miss out on that. You can get the details at clarifyyourhomeschool.com, but let's work together. Let's get you to the point where you start back in January and you, not the curriculum, but you are on fire and you're excited about your homeschool and you've created something that only you can create for your family. You, the homeschool mom, are the only one that can create a homeschool where your children are going to thrive and excel in, and that you are going to thrive and excel in as well. I hope to see you at clarifyyourhomeschool.com with the coupon code Black Friday 2023 to get 30% off. Have a really good day, friends, and happy early Thanksgiving.
If this podcast has encouraged you, the number one way you can thank me is to leave a written review on Apple Podcasts. I love to hear how this show has impacted you, so if you could hop over and do that, I'd be so grateful. While you're at it, take a screenshot of this episode and share it with your friends to encourage them. You can also find me over on Instagram at Little by Little Homeschool. Until next time, have a beautiful day, Mama.